So I don't have a statement. My statement was on the floor. I think I don't have a statement or a microphone. There we go. I think our team put forward our message and our feelings on this very articulately and very well on the floor today. So I'll just take your questions if you have any for me. Shaylee.
Will the House minority be pushing back against this decision at all, or trying to appeal it in any way?
So I don't know that we have an appeal option. I think we need to regroup as a caucus. This obviously impacts more than the 100 people in this building. It impacts 11,000 people in Missoula who will not have a representative that's able to freely debate on the floor. To us, that's unacceptable, and we have to decide what to do. Jonathan, then Aaron.
In the speaker, he said that there's seeing what Representative Zephyr did on the floor, holding up the microphone, and that was inciting what happened in the gallery. What is your response to that?
So they were not clear about what the violation was. They cited Masons, they cited our rules. I will just say that this is beyond our rules, and this is about a broader principle of representative democracy. And there are other avenues to maintain order, and they chose to ignore those avenues and to take this one. It's an extreme decision. You heard Representative Windy Boy in his 21 years. He hasn't seen any punishment like this. I was around the building for 10 years before I started to serve. I've never seen anything like this, and I've seen a lot on the floor. You know, you guys have too. This is an extreme action. It's undercutting our ability to do our work. And it's undercutting, democratic representation for a lot of people in the state. Aaron, and then
the speaker kind of drew a comparison between how Representative Zephyr has made her points and how Representative Howell, as the first two trans people in this legislation.
No, I'm not answering that. Can we go here?
What were some? You mentioned in your floor speech that there were some alternatives. What were, and you kind of touched on it, but can you just expand a little bit more about what those were that you presented to the speaker?
Yeah, so if you look at our House rules, there's a provision in House Rule 2080 that allows for calling a member to order. The Speaker can do it, the Pro Tem can do it, the Majority Leader can do it, and I can do it. You call somebody to order. If they don't come to order immediately, they're seated. If they don't come to order, you can go to the Rules Committee. So my point to the Speaker was that was the way to pursue that. We could have had debate and still recognize the representative from Missoula on the floor. If she was outside of decorum, we could have that debate. She could be gavelled, she could be sat down. We didn't do that. We just made a uniform decision, and by we I mean the Speaker, made a uniform decision to just silence that representative and not recognize her.
And do you feel like you were listened to when you were speaking in private conversations with Republican leadership?
Absolutely. Our conversations are fine. I feel like they listened. They didn't accept any of my suggestions. Holly, and then Blair.
A two-part question. I'm wondering with how you feel like this is going to change. You got a lot of hard work left to do. There's the budget and hospital demand is going to come back. But like the conference did today, how do you feel like this might change between the rest of the session? And then also going forward, I understand if you're not in this chamber, but we're going to have session next time. Do you think Democrats will change how they approach? Because I know you raised concerns of seem to breach into quorum like other Republicans have made. Do you think that changes behaviors going forward of not letting that slide?
Yeah, I actually do. I think as a caucus, we've had a number of conversations around how the rules have been unevenly applied and the way that we've done some things off the microphone. I can speak for myself that, when the Majority Leader came over and said, hey, I think your member violated decorum, I went and asked for an apology. There was an apology. So we do plenty of that off the microphone, and I think our conversation as a caucus is maybe we need to do more of that on the microphone. And maybe we need to not let as many things slide and really make a point every time we feel like, the rules might have been violated or decorum might have been violated. And so I think, to answer your question, yes, I think going forward, we'll change our approach over the next couple weeks, I think. And then I think going forward, you're right, I won't be here, but other Democratic leadership will likely take a different approach.
I do have concerns about, if House Bill 359 was one I think I heard from some Dems. They thought that might have gone different before all this.
Yeah.
I think that's going to be...
I think we have to wait and see. Obviously, we lost a couple days we don't have many days left, and we have a lot of work to do. My hope is that we can still work together, and I think we'll see it on the board, just like you will.
Yeah, and so what are your
Blair first, and then I'll come to you.
For future sessions, and I know this would be you postulating a little bit, do you think this sets any sort of precedent at all for how future legislators would handle this sort of thing?
You know, any official action sets a precedent, right? We couldn't find a precedent for this, and I don't know if you guys have been able to, but like we searched around and couldn't find one. And then you heard Representative Wendy Boy, you know, Representative Cafaro, Representative Stuart Peregray, Representative Cohenauer. They've all been in this building a long time. They couldn't think of anything. So yes, we set a precedent. I don't think a precedent needs to be continued going forward. But anytime you take an official action, you set a precedent.
And what are your next steps for your party going forward after this?
For our caucus, we're going to meet tomorrow. We're going to talk through what happened today. We're going to talk through our priorities, what's still alive in the process, and how we can work hard to get it across the finish line. And then we'll support Representative Zephyr in any way we can in allowing for her participation on behalf of her constituents.
Do you think that this damages any kind of bipartisan cooperation going forward?
You know, it doesn't damage it for our caucus. We have some things that we agree with Republicans on. We've always had to work across the aisle to get any of our ideas across the finish line. I've talked to all of you guys about that before. Anything that we move has to be bipartisan, and we know that. So we're still ready to get to work, and I think, you know, that question is for Republicans on, you know, whether they're still willing to work with us. But my hope is that we can move forward on priorities that Montanans really care about. But I don't want to diminish the fact that, like, standing up for Democratic representation in the Constitution today was important, and we had to. Yep.
Minority Leader.
Mara, you're next.
Obviously, as you mentioned, Representative Zephyr was not gavelled down when she first made these comments. Right. It seems that a lot of this came after the Freedom Caucus's letter. Do you think that this is an example of the Freedom Caucuses being able to flex their might here at the legislature?
I mean, I think that's a question for the speaker, isn't it? That letter was incredibly offensive. It repeatedly and intentionally misgendered Zooey. And I hope it didn't have much influence.
Speaker Gear referenced repeatedly the presence of police, and specifically the police in riot gear, as an indication of the level of severity of the situation in the chamber that required this level of action going forward. And I think specifically talked about how that was not something that could ever be repeated, and they needed to make a stand. Can you respond to that?
We have a fundamental disagreement, the speaker and I, on what was required during that protest. That protest was peaceful, it was disruptive. Both of those things are true. The highway patrol was slowly moving people out of the gallery, and they could have continued to do that. There was no reason to escalate the situation with SWAT. We just have a disagreement on that. Like, that was a peaceful protest. The protesters were disruptive on purpose because they disagreed with the actions of this body. And it's a First Amendment principle.
And a follow-up on that.
Aaron, you're next.
Speaker Gear also mentioned that he interpreted Representative Zephyr's action of holding the microphone up in the air as egging on the protest. Can you respond to that, please?
You'd have to ask Representative Zephyr. Like, I'm not going to guess at her motivation or the impact it had. The thing that I care the most about is that people don't get hurt. You know my history. I've engaged in a lot of protests. I've organized a lot of protests. I don't want people to get hurt. And I think that the escalation of a SWAT team coming in and moving through was the escalation. You'd have to ask Representative Zephyr.
There's been a lot of talk about how the protest money disrupted legislative business, but we're now 2 days without taking any second reading on the floor with 6 to 8 days left in the session. I'm just wondering what you think about that contradiction.
Well, the Senate keeps moving the deadline, so maybe we'll just move it again and never leave, all right? No, I mean, I'm sorry, whoever's mic this is. Let's move right here. I worry, like I said on the floor, I worry about an opportunity cost when we're this close to being done. And I know that we're ready to get to work. If we have long days tomorrow, if we have multiple boards tomorrow, like we'll get our work done. But yeah, this is a disruption that we didn't need if a different path had been chosen by the speaker. Yeah. Anybody else before Holly? Okay.
I'm wondering, we heard from Representative Zephyr and then Representative Howell before today about how they feel like they are minority voices in the legislature that are representing communities that, for one, have never been represented in this chamber before. Do you feel like there's still space for them to have their voice and be able to share the experiences that they've lived or that people in their communities have lived, given this action today?
So for Representative Howell, yes. For Representative Zephyr, I don't think she'll have an opportunity.
Do you feel like, though, they're able to share that in an impactful way? I mean, like, we heard the concerns about the language that were originally raised.
You know, I think that's a question for Representative Howell and Representative Zephyr. I don't think I want to answer it for them. Yeah. Anybody else?
It's just technically, do you know, is Representative Zephyr, so is she still out in committees and would she be able to do interim?
My understanding is that, well, I guess I'll say the motion didn't address committees, and so we'll have to work that out.
And, I'm sorry, House Judiciary, I believe, was scheduled for today, but it ended up being canceled. Is there a reason given for that?
No, I would ask the chair. Anything else? Thanks, you guys.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.